are joining from. Some of us are joining in from the UK, different parts of the UK, some in South Africa, some in Nigeria. So wherever you are joining in from, would love to put that in there, okay? Okay, and then also this session will be recorded, FYI, and it will be put on my YouTube channel for anyone who wants to have a second chance at watching it again. Perhaps you out and you want to watch that again. It is being recorded. Okay. All right. So I think Florence, are you sending me messages? Let me see. And the
Yes,
joining.
I am. I wanted to save the link because I don't know where to pick it from to share with people who have invited.
Okay, so typically the expectation is that they sign up so that we can at least capture their data, but I've just put the link in there. You can share it with them directly because I know some people have a hard time going on Eventbrite, but typically it's quite easy for you to get on Eventbrite and just click on the link. But I've just shared it here. Yeah, okay. Okay, so we're going to dive in now. And please remember the housekeeping rules as you're seeing on screen, because I can see some people are not muted. Please mute yourselves. I'm going to put that in chat as well. Let's mute ourselves if you are just joining, so that we don't interrupt the session as we properly commence right about now. Okay. Okay, so we're going to start with a little bit of an introduction. Let me put in chat first for those who are just joining. And I'm going to pin this. Yeah, so let's start. Okay, so a little bit of an introduction. I don't know that everyone here knows me, so it's always good to do an introduction because I don't know majority of the people who signed up. My name is Jess. I am the host and I'll say founder of Tech Without the Code. It is an initiative I pretty much just launched this year. We had the first session in March of this year, sometime towards the end of March, and we had spotlighted communications, that's internal communications, and a recruiter in tech, which was an amazing session. Those who had joined the first time and are here today, you can testify that it was quite a packed. We went off topic, in topic, within topic. Yeah, we went around all the works, and it was an open space, and that's what we really wanted to be today as well, and for the next sessions that will come. So I have about 12 years in recruiting when it comes to experience. I have recruited in tech in the last decade, and prior to that, I was in consulting. So I worked with about 3 consulting firms in Nigeria. That's how I pretty much started my career, and I was hiring for different clients within different spaces. So think tech, when tech was still more of telecoms, and then it was like building into actual tech with products and stuff. And then now we don't also hired for the banks, finance industries. I even hired for hospitals. Like, I don't think there's any industry that I haven't touched, to be honest. I've hired forklift engineers, drivers, and executives at CEO and COO level as well. So I did all of that before I then went into my first in-house role in a company called Andela, which is a global software engineering firm. They had just built their process in Africa at the time. So I was there for nearly 4 years, and then I moved to Netflix in 2021. And then I'm also a global people leader. So beyond just being a recruiter and hiring in tech, I have always had the pleasure of managing whether small or large teams within any organization that I've worked, from my first job until my most recent. And then I am a career coach and career development advocate. I'm strongly passionate and very deeply passionate about helping people discover themselves when it comes to like building their career. And it comes from a personal place as well, because when I was done with school, I studied cell biology and genetics in school, and I knew that's not what I really wanted to be. I went from wanting to be a medical doctor to not knowing what I wanted to do. If you're Nigerian, if you're Nigerian, then you understand how JAM can mess you up. So I was one of those people that they withheld their results for like my first 2 JAM. I never saw my results, and I'm like, well, time is going. I don't intend to spend 6-7 years in a university trying to be a medical doctor when my age is like catching up with me. And then I just kept on changing what I wanted to do. And at some point, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just figured out, get a degree, make your parents proud, make yourself proud, and then decide what you want to do. So I basically just fell into HR with the first consulting firm that I worked with. And, that's how my journey began. And it's been, strong since then. So quite grateful. Yeah, so I'd say that's a short brief about me. And then when you guys were registering to get on here, there was a form that you had to fill. So thank you guys for filling that, because I know that sometimes it's quite annoying to fill forms. But I know that I really wanted people who really understood why they wanted to be here, or at least got a sense of why they wanted to be here. And these were the questions that we asked. We asked questions around: are you in tech? Or are you looking to get in tech? Just to get a sense of our demographics and the data surrounding people who are actually coming and signing up for these events. And then what your current role is. I think the reason why this question was asked primarily was because this is a finance edition, and in my adverts, like putting out the ads and like, just talking about the events, I was trying to, make sure people understood that it wasn't about finance, right? You come and learn about what they do in their roles as finance professionals, but it is not for finance professionals. It's for anyone and everyone who actually wants to learn about, building a career in tech, getting into tech, and even just striving and thriving in tech, pretty much. And the other question we asked was like, what's the one thing that you're looking forward to learning or, hearing about in this event? And then, of course, did you join the last edition? So this is how you guys answered, and I'm only going to share about on the first three questions, right? So surprisingly, it's almost like a 50-50. Half of you guys says that you say you're in tech, and then the other half are not in tech and actually do want to come into tech or make a career switch. So that was quite a fascinating data point for me, because typically I may not expect to see lots of people in tech, but this also says, it gives us some story here about how to make sure that there's value in these conversations for every single person, whether you are in tech or not in tech, which is exactly what we're doing here. Whether you are in tech, you just started, you get something that you can live with about how to grow in tech and be better at what you do whilst you're in the tech industry. And then also there was a split between those who are in actual technology roles, so think software engineer or anything related to that space, and those who are in more of business roles or corporate roles, as you'd like. And we have an 80% to 82 ratio when it comes to that division. So which is expected. Of course, I'm not expecting like software engineers to be on here, but it's good to see that we do have a couple of them. We have some cybersecurity engineers who signed up, and that was great. And then also, in terms of what you guys hope to learn today, I'm putting this out here to hold ourselves accountable. So Sadiq and Victor as well, this is what the people want to learn about, yeah? They want to learn how to break into tech, how to make a career switch, right? These are the big things. They were over almost 100 responses, and these are the big things. I just like streamline them and put them into buckets. And then people want to know like any advice for new employees in tech, so new joiners in tech. And then of course they want to know about the non-technical roles that have moderate entry points. Someone was very specific. I literally copied and pasted this, and I really like this point. Like, not so hard to get in, but you reap high rewards and benefits. And then of course, how to improve their chances at securing their next role, and what other roles are available in the tech ecosystem, and learning from experienced professionals like yourselves, my able speakers. This is what the people have asked. Now, moving to the agenda, it will be very straightforward. Really, I'm doing what we're talking about already, which is the welcome and introduction. We'll do a bit of a slide deck or slide on just examples of business roles that you can find in tech, regardless of the size of the company. And then we would then dive into hearing from the speakers directly, whom are Victor and Sadiq, and I'll do a proper introduction in a bit. And we've already talked about the housekeeping rules. Please stay muted and save your questions for later if you're just joining. And we'll learn a little bit about the different business roles that we consider crucial for company success in the tech ecosystem. Okay. Just to reiterate, again, if this is your first time joining, we basically want to ensure that you understand, or at least you leave here with the understanding that business roles are equally important in tech, as much as, the tech roles are like, the sexiest roles. Everyone wants to be some tech enthusiast of some sort, or switch careers to become very tech inclined in that way. If the tech guys are the only guys you hire in tech, then the business will never make profit, right? So that's why we're doing this, for you to understand that beyond what you see and hear about, there are these guys who work as the backbone and the engine, and they're like just oiling the machine and working so hard and making sure the business stays a business and stays profitable, right? So this is pretty much it. They are very critical to the overall success of any organization, and pretty much the heart of the companies. If I think about myself as a recruiter, if a company doesn't have a good recruiting team, they're not even going to hire, right? And if you have a horrible one, you're not going to hire well. So that already tells you the importance of, say, a recruiter or a HR department. And you say the same for operations as well. You say the same for business development. You say the same for finance. And that's what we want to talk about here today. So these are some examples of non-tech or business roles that you can find in tech. And what I did here was that I put it in like different buckets, so you understand the mission and the purpose of these roles, right? So you can really see how they connect and align to the business goals overall. So there's the cultural integration. You join a company, every company has a culture. It doesn't mean the company culture is always great. For some, it's really good, and they want to, keep that and nurture that and ensure that it either stays or evolves in a more positive way. And then some is just really messed up and they want to change that. So for the cultural integration element, that's where HR comes in. That's where the diversity and inclusion team come in. Even communications come in, even operations come in, because there's a lot of like team meetings, a lot of like town halls, things that just bring people together. And of course, managing resources and scaling. Without the operations team, you don't know where to allocate certain people. You don't know if you have enough office space. You don't know anything. So you need an strong ops team to help you get that. Of course, there's monetizing technology, managing finance and budget, which we'll be talking about in a bit, and aligning technology with the business goals. So this is just a nice snapshot. Feel free to make a screenshot if you like, but just to give you an idea, I don't want to go line by line, otherwise we'll sleep here. But this is to give you an idea of several examples of different business or corporate roles that exist in the technology industry that do not necessarily are tech roles, right? Okay, now let's do, I really can't wait to introduce our speakers today. We have Victor. Let us meet Victor. Victor, can you, when I'm done introducing you, please, raise your hand, get excited, do something, wave, let them see you. Victor is a seasoned finance leader. What really captured me about Victor's background, why I said yes to reaching out to Victor and just praying that he says yes to me, is because he's got this cross-industry experience. He's worked in strong Big Four consulting, so KPMG. He's worked in General Electric. We know that General Electric at this point, I don't know what industry to classify them. They are into power, they're into oil, they've got products. So that is already a loaded industry. And then now he's gone into tech, where he works with Meta as a program manager in business strategy and commercial enablement. Now, when you read this, you're going to wonder, like, what is this? Is this really finance? Well, it's finance. So it's actually finance. And that's why we want to learn from him. What does it mean to even be a program manager in finance, right? Because this is also something people want to become, just being a program manager, for instance, regardless of the discipline or the department that they fall under, but yours is very specialized. So Victor actually holds a degree in engineering and a background in financial management, and he brings this lovely unique blend of rigor and strategic insights into the tech world. He's been in tech for about 3 years, and prior his entire experience has been in these different industries. So I can't wait for us to learn from Victor about how he got here, why we're talking to him today, and what he's done differently the last couple of years. And then we have Sadiq. Sadiq and I worked at Andela together, so I know Sadiq personally, and I know he's been an amazing stakeholder in the time that him and I have worked together as a TA leader. I worked with him a lot in terms of like budgeting and stuff like that, and also like financial planning. But beyond that, Sadiq actually specializes in scaling businesses. He's like the finance guru of like tech startups, if you'd like. So when you think about the tech startups that get like funding and stuff, Sadiq is somewhere involved, So that's why I thought his insights would be really valuable on this edition of Tech Without the Code. He's managed financial operations in Ghana, in Nigeria. I know he's even traveling to Nigeria and Kenya in a couple of weeks, and South Africa as well, where he has a proven record of enhancing profitability and securing all the bags when it comes to money. So Sadiq and Victor, please come off mute and let us know that you're here and alive. Yeah.
Hi everyone. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Excited to be here and sharing my knowledge and experience with everyone within the through this medium, right? So looking forward to putting my 2 cents out there.
Thank you, Sadiq. Victor?
Amazing. Thanks, Jess, for the introduction. I'm super excited to be here. Looking forward to sharing as much knowledge as I can, and just looking forward to those great questions that will be coming from the audience as well.
Amazing. Okay, so let's dive in with a little, because I know I've done a lot of talking. So let's dive in with, let's just get the flow moving a bit. So Victor, you've been in Ireland for a couple of years now. What is the one thing you love about living in Ireland?
I would say Ireland is relatively safe. It's laid back. The people are super hospitable, and just the diversity that exists in Ireland, even though the population is 5 million, is super impressive. So, in my office, for example, you literally see everyone from every country is on the planet Earth. That kind of show you how diverse Ireland is. So, and then the beautiful scenery as well. The mountains, the beach. Just the raw beauty in Ireland is just something that I can't just get enough of. Really, it's a beautiful place. I would recommend for anyone who is thinking of migrating to consider Ireland, as a choice location.
Okay, Ambassador. Okay. Thank you. And then, what is the one thing you do not like about living in Ireland?
Oh man, the weather is unpredictable. So even though if the weather app tells you it's not going to rain, don't trust the app. Always go out with your umbrella. Always go out with your raincoat. Just don't assume that because the app indicates it's not going to rain, that it won't rain in Ireland. So, for example, I would say one of the pet talk that you kind of always use to initiate conversation when you meet someone for the first time is to talk about the weather in Ireland. Either it's been raining for the past few days, or the rain has stopped and then it's just been super hot and sunny for the past few days. So I think the weather, the unpredictability around the weather in Ireland is something I don't really enjoy that much.
Do you think it's because you're just Nigerian and we're used to warmth, or do you think it's an actual thing? Because I feel like it's the same when I live in the Netherlands.
Yeah, I think if it's not, I love the cold, but I just don't like that every time it rains a lot. So if you're not driving, you likely get wet. So imagine having like some important documents with you, and then because the app already tell you it's not going to rain, so you're like, okay, there's no need to drive. Let me do biking, and then boom, the shower starts and your document gets destroyed. So I think the unpredictability is just something I don't like. But in terms of like, if it's cold, I actually prefer cold weather to hot weather. Really.
Okay. And then Sadiq, I'm not going to ask you the same question because you and I live in this UK together. So I know you'll probably say something similar because the UK weather is, oh my God, yeah, but we're not going to talk about that. So I'm going to ask you, you've been in tech for quite a bit. What is the one thing that people don't know about working in tech from your perspective? Like everyone wants to come into tech, right? Maybe for the money and, I don't know, the perks, the cool nature of it. But like, what is that one thing that you roll your eyes at that you just wish people knew?
I think is the constant change, right? How you have to iterate yourself, right, multiple times. So I always tell people that if you're not ready to change every quarter, especially if you're working in smaller tech companies that are really trying to grow to get to like a meta stage, right? And even the big companies, right? I have a friend that works in Amazon, and he told me literally that Amazon is a mess. That don't just think that what you're seeing from the front is like, oh, this cool, is this super thing that's happening behind it. It's a mess. Said a lot of things are going wrong behind it, right? And they just constantly fix. So if you're not ready to constantly change, people don't know that there's always that constant change every quarter. So that's one surprising thing that people always find was difficult to adjust to.
I love that you said that because this now brings us into the actual session, which is, when I think about working in tech and what I advise people that want to get into tech, one of the main top 3 skills is adaptability, which is exactly what you like. As much as the company is a mess, it can be a beautiful mess, right? Because there's so much work to do, and that's literally how you learn. I don't think you learn so much when there's like lots of stability. So we can dive in from there, right? Thinking about like, top skills that are required. And don't get me wrong, we're going to get into like what you guys do for a living. But let's start off with that. Regards like the actual skill sets that you feel like, listen, you can't thrive in tech if you don't have this top 2 or top 3. And Victor, please, this is also for you as well, just from your perspective. what are the top things that people just need to know, or try to work around or build or hone those skill sets, whether they exist in like minute quantities or don't exist at all? What are those top skills for you?
I would say, and it maybe might sound cliche, right? I would say 2 or 3 things. First is ownership. I'll say ownership is one thing that has gotten me so far, right, in tech, in my career and tech industry, right? Because the CEO, the manager, your line manager has so many things. Like, remember, we already said a lot of things are chaotic. So nobody has a lot of time to unhold you, right? So you must own anything that is given to you, or whenever you see a problem, go and own it and try to solve it. Like, ownership is that's one of the things that will make you grow, even more than technical skills, to be honest, right? Then communication, being able to communicate. A lot of problems I've seen with a lot of people is they might see an issue and they will just stay behind, or his managers, his guys getting paid that money to deal with that kind of issue or communicate. Communicate. Also know how to communicate problems. Don't just say problems. Always come up with recommendation of solutions, right? You might not have the perfect solution. You might have 3 what's the name, recommended solution. Just bring it out there, and they might not go with it, but it shows that you are thinking. You're not just thinking about problems or just identifying problems. So, and the way you communicate it, right? You should know how to communicate, even from emails. Go straight to the point. You see a lot of people writing so many emails that you lose people, right? So, ownership, communication are like 2 important things I would say if in tech industry.
Thank you. And then Victor, your top 2?
I think my top 2 would be stakeholder fluency. So ability to, even though you don't have line of authority, to influence your stakeholders is super important, because you'll be working collaboratively with people across different line of business, different domains, who report to different managers. And in some instances, you actually be leading some of these projects. So just being able to influence people, even though you don't have like the power, quote and unquote, it's super important in the tech sector, and this require you asking sharp questions. You show comfort with ambiguity. You're not afraid to challenge assumptions respectfully. You document clearly. You assign tasks efficiently. So it's super important. The second one for me is storytelling. So communication and storytelling matters a lot, especially, if you're in the finance domain. Just being able to tell the stories behind the numbers and just not communicating the numbers. You speak the language of your stakeholders, the language of those that will be consuming the data. It's super important. So for me, I would say, as it relates to finance domain, these are like the 2 top skills that you need to really thrive in the tech sector.
Thank you so much. Now, while we are on you, Victor, let's talk about your journey. What led you into tech? Because your background is just like, how did you land there?
No, absolutely. And I think it's one of those very interesting journey and background. Maybe to start with, my background was engineering. So I actually spent 5 years in school studying engineering, chemical engineering specifically. And the plan and the intention was, after school, I'll get a job with one of these oil multinationals in Nigeria, the Mobil, the Shell, the Total, etc. But then I transitioned to finance out of curiosity and desire to impact business more closely and more directly, and this involved a change in my mindset. My mindset. So I moved from a precision-focused, system-oriented perspective to how can I add value? How can I support my stakeholders in impacting the business in a larger scope? For example, in engineering, success is all about getting the system to work flawlessly, perfectly. But in finance, it's all about providing clarity under ambiguity, enabling trade-offs to drive business performance. And that led me to KPMG, and then I was in KPMG Nigeria for like a year before I joined GE in Nigeria. So GE is a big company in Nigeria with big footprint in the healthcare sector, the power sector, and the oil and gas sector. So I was with GE for like 5-6 years before a recruiter came calling. So I wasn't actually interested in tech, but a recruiter kind of found my profile super attractive and then reached out to me. And then, that was how I got the job and then landed in tech. I would say maybe one thing that worked for me is, number one, even though I have the skills, I just don't keep the skills in my closet. I ensure my footprints reflect the impact I'm creating in my current company, and even the skill set and impact I can create in other companies that are looking for people with similar skill sets like mine.
Footprints. Let's talk about footprints. What did you do? What's footprint? What is footprint in this context? Where did you leverage to make sure your footprints were visible enough for recruiter to reach out to you?
No, yeah, again, personal branding could be exhibited in different form and formats, right? So my footprint here, it's my online footprint. The biggest career site currently is still LinkedIn. So I ensure my LinkedIn speaks to my achievements. My LinkedIn speaks to the skill sets I have and the impact I've created in previous companies I've worked for and the current companies I'm working for. So I guess the recruiter that reached out to me probably put a prompt into LinkedIn to say, I'm looking for individual with this skill set. And then luckily, my profile matches the skill sets she or he was looking for, and then initiated the conversations with me and all of that. So just ensuring that you put out your project out there, certifications you have, publish them, put them in your profile, ensuring even your other aspect of your social media as well, your Facebook, TikTok, especially if you are using your government name, speaks to your professionalism. It goes a lot, because now I heard, and you could confirm that sometimes recruiters actually go beyond just the conventional LinkedIn profile. They go to Facebook and every other aspect of your social media to see who the real person is, because when you are working in the company, what you bring forth is actually your real identity, because some of the soft skills speaks to your real identity. So just ensuring your footprint speaks to your professionalism, your impact, the skill set you have, and what you could do matters a lot. And I think that was what worked for me to get me into tech.
Yes, and I completely agree with that. So basically, Victor is saying, optimize your LinkedIn enough that, when a recruiter puts in some keywords pertaining to your space or your discipline, you are found. Like you're actually on that search that comes up. I think that's very important to what you said. And then Victor, did you find that did you have to do any noise making, and not in a negative way, like, maybe posting on LinkedIn, in that way when it comes to, because I feel like people understanding of what personal branding is, their LinkedIn pages may not be as optimized as yours was, but they feel like they need to make some noise out there. Again, by making noise doesn't negate it in any way. It's not a negative thing, but just promote yourself, through maybe weekly posts and stuff like that. People have that strong perception that is the way to go. I know it's one of the many ways that you can go, but did you have to do any bit of that, or you were just a quiet person with a very strong profile?
I would say I'm more of the quiet person with a very strong profile, But then again, it's just all about creating the balance. But what is very and most important is make sure you are building a portfolio of relevance on your online footprint, So before you post, just kind of ask, does this make sense? Would this get me to where I want to be in the next 5 years? After maybe 5 or 10 years, would I be happy that I have this sort of information online? Does this tally with my career goals and, where I'm thinking to land myself from a career standpoint? So I would say just building a portfolio of relevance online goes a long way. And I think LinkedIn is where you could start from. Like I said, you post your certifications. You have any published paper, put it out there. You have any skills, maybe you probably just finish your ACCA, which is the UK certification for accounting professionals, put it out there so that people could know what you could offer, because hey, a closed mouth, like they say, is a closed destiny. So I would say ensure your online footprint is fully optimized with the right information that will get you to where you want to be in the next 2 years, 5 years, or 10 years.
Thank you so much, Victor. Now, Sadiq, as the head of finance at MCOPA, what does that really mean? I mean, as a TA person, I know that finance has there's lots of tentacles. So what parts of finance do you cover? Is it all of finance? What parts of finance does your team look after? Is it budgeting? Tell us about what you do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. So what I do is I manage the P&L, basically, right? The P&L and balance sheet for the West African entities.
Tell us what is P&L. I know, but
Yeah, profit and loss statements, balance sheet, optimizing them and improving them with the general managers. So basically taking the countries to profitability and improving that profitability for each country, right? And ensuring that there's also the nuts and bolts of ensuring regular accounting policies are implemented and optimizing processes, right? And then there's the soft skills side of managing a team and growing the team, right? So a lot of my day-to-day is more around finance operations, um, strategy on how to improve costs, how can we improve top line, working with the sales team to improve what's the name, revenue. Where can we make investments right now so that we can reap the benefits in 6 months, 1 year, working with operations team, where can we improve operations? Sometimes can be investing in things, right? Now to get improved cost efficiencies in the future, work with even HR teams, right? In terms of helping to hire talent, in terms of how do we want to fund types of salary structure, those kind of things. So basically, I usually say like I'm the CFO of the West Africa entity, right? I do what my CFO does, but just more on a regional basis, right? So that's basically my work, right? So I don't have day-to-day tasks right now because I have more monthly, quarterly, and yearly, like what's the name, objectives. Like, so my OKRs are tied to the profitability of my entities and how my entities scale.
Got it. Thank you. I know that you used a lot of like finance lingua there, but let us do like layman English. Okay. So tell me, I mean, you joined MCOPA, you're close to 4 years now, right?
Well, I actually turned 4 years, 2 years, 2 weeks ago. Actually.
Congratulations on your anniversary. But tell me, because I know you worked with Jumia, then you worked with Andela. Those were your three big techs that you've worked with so far, and then MCOPA, of course. I know we've talked about like, what one thing people don't know about tech when they join. But if you think about like, say, your first, I don't know, 90 days, or even when you became let's do that. When you became a hiring manager, when you inherited a team or you had to build your team, what would you say are like the top 2 to 3 common mistakes that you find that candidates tend to make? It's not about finance, obviously, even if you're hiring for finance, but the same thing can be applicable in the next role, or even if it's a communications role or HR role. But what have you found that are the top 2 or 3 mistakes that candidates tend to make when they're applying for a role? It could be either their resumes. I don't know if you're a hiring manager who loves cover letter. As a recruiter, I really don't fancy cover letter, so I don't have a bias for that one. But generally, like depending on what you fancy and what you request for during the application stage, what mistakes have you found?
Yeah, so I think cover letter, I'm in the same boat with you. I don't really care about cover letter. And even I myself, once a company asks for cover letter, I get put off.
Yeah.
Cover letter, because I don't believe people have time to look at it, right? As the hiring manager, because you even to review CVs, right? It takes a long time. Even after the your HR business partners reviewed CVs. If you tell me to review my busy schedule, to review 20 CVs or 10 CVs, a lot of work, right? So cover letter is not, but that doesn't mean people shouldn't write cover letters when you see companies tell you to
Oh,
write.
well, I'll tell you for free. When it's requested, please write it.
Please
Because
write
I've worked with a handful of hiring managers that they look at your cover letter way more than they look at your resume. They don't even need your resume. They look at your LinkedIn and they look at your cover letter. They are like, when you talked about storytelling, Victor, they want to see you tell your story. So they're actually people. So when it's requested, put your best into it. But yeah, continue.
Yes. Yes. So I'll say mistake that I'll come from, and this is not one size fits all, right? For me, from my own perspective, is usually the first 5 to 15 minutes of an interview are so crucial. I tell candidates, you need to extremely prepare for those first five, because in tech roles, people, the hiring managers or even HR people that if you're having the first cultural interview or something, or the hiring manager interview, they have a very busy schedule, right? Like for example, my Mondays are crazy. Monday, every day is crazy. So for me to squeeze time for an interview, you need to sell me within your first 5 to 10 minutes. Tell me about yourself question. Might sound very little, but you should be able to sell yourself within that 5 minutes you're going to speak about yourself. So not spending too much about one single role, all the single things you did. Focus on high level what you did, what you achieved quickly. Go through all your roles, go through your personal life so fast that it tells a story. Practice it. A lot of people think that they know themselves. Even I myself, right? If I'm applying for a new role, I always have to practice. I write down all the questions, possible questions. I write down my answers. not necessarily answers, but bullet points, go through how I want to explain it. So practice, and those 5 to first 15 minutes of an interview, right? If you lose me in that first 5 to 10 minutes, I'll most likely not move you to the next round, even if you perform well in the next set of questions, right? So it's very key. Then the next one is, I say a lot of people, which is always very strange, is not doing enough research on the company. Seeing that, and it's just a very easy thing to do. It won't take you 1 hour, it won't take you more than 3 hours to research. And these 3 hours is not 3 hours at a stretch. It's breaking it 30 minutes per day for a week, right? Spend 30 minutes, research the company, what they do, check about the team, even go as far as looking at what's the name, the person that's going to interview you, right? I've interviewed someone that the person has seen some of my Medium posts and spoke about it, and I recruited the person because of that. Was part of the person who was able to engage me, right, with that as well. So the person who just chipped in that post in one of his answers. So I could say, okay, this person has done their research. When you do the research, you understand the business model, you probably understand some of the problems, right? Going into more technical roles, right? Like for finance, for example. If I do a research on the company, I know that the company is into inventory, right? They do hardware or something, that I will know that inventory will probably be a problem for them, right? I know that IAS2 that talks about inventory, right? Can be a problem for them. So I'll go and dig about things about IAS2 so I can speak about potential problems that they can have. Look at the IFRS 15, the revenue recognition model, how it will impact the company, because tech companies now, their business models are not the conventional brick and mortar that some of the accounting policies were created for. So you should know how some of those accounting policies apply to them. So all these things, by doing research, you will know how to apply some of these things to them. So, and doing research won't take you more than 3 hours, I can bet you, before an interview. So I think, and it's a very, very easy thing to just do. And you don't need to cram anything on those things. You don't need to cram. No cramming. It's just learning about it, and it will help you even if you don't get that job, right? It will just help you muscle memory for doing that researching every time you are prepared for an interview. Then the last thing within researching as well will be values. Once you're researching, you will know the values of a company, and almost every company, when they're asking questions, they ask questions that tie to their values, right? So that's actually another easy set of questions. So once you understand values and the company's values, and you can just think about questions that will come around values, right? You will be able to do well in the interview. So I think those are two common mistakes I see that a lot of people make, right?
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I know that there used to be a time, in hiring where people knew that by default you had to research the company, but I find that that's changed now a bit. I don't know if it's with all the redundancies or like what's happening. People are just really looking for a job and they're not putting in as much work as they think that they are. So sometimes I actually find that people don't know much about where a company is. Like if a company has just made some, I don't know, acquisition, or they've acquired a new company, and it's in the media, like it's like the first 2-3 things you see on Google, or now that we have AI, like you can't miss it, right? And then somehow they don't even know about those acquisitions. And then if you see all this news, that's a good way to plug in and say, here's where my skills can benefit you. Like everything that the company is doing that is out there, that is information that anyone can find, is always a good way to leverage and just find a way to align your skill sets to that. So completely agree with you, Sadiq. The other thing you mentioned around candidates losing you in the 5-10 minutes window. How then, as a hiring manager, do you try to extend grace for people who are not like the strongest interviewees? Because I know that some people are really great at their roles. I've hired some people that they were in, like, when I say like the lowest and the poorest when it comes to interviewing, and you can tell that it's just nerves or whatever. Obviously, as you advance in your career, there's no room for that as much. But maybe those in their early stages who are not really good at like putting themselves together, but you can see that there's something there, maybe some potential, but you just need them to be able to sell that to you. What do you do as a hiring manager to make sure that they feel like, okay, it's not the end of the world, or giving them that grace?
Yeah, so what I try to do sometimes is, when people, as a hiring manager, you ask, do you have questions for me, right? People tend to ask it at the end. I don't like to ask ahead. I ask it in between the 15. Like after I've asked like 3-4 questions, I pause and ask you so to get you comfortable. So that by the time you're asking me questions or interview me, you somehow get comfortable with the interview, and then we can then now build up from there. If you ask smart questions, right, and I give you answers to them, you can even come up with questions, and then from there I can even ask you questions, right, and get me back engaged again. So I always use that to try to get people. And if I even see you're quite nervous, I just try to tell you that, hey, calm down. And this is also where your CV comes into play as well. If I was excited about your CV already, and then I'm seeing that you're very nervous, I'm like, okay, this person's CV is not aligning with how the person. I'm like, okay, let me give this person a lot of chance. So I would try to keep probing you, trying to get you in place, right? So your CV as well needs to tell a good story about yourself. Now that we have AI, right? It's not like before where you just have one CV. Now you can take a job description, take your CV and put it into AI, maybe Google, Gemini or ChatGPT to kind of work your CV to that job. At least even speak about some of your accomplishments, right? That will kind of tie to the job. So do that a lot. That would at least, okay, me as a hiring manager, but I see your CV, I'm intrigued about your CV. So even if you stumble a little bit, the hiring manager might, because they're excited about your CV, they'll give you a bit of more chances.
Okay, thank you for sharing. I'm going to come back to you on this tailoring your CV bit that you just talked about. It's somewhat controversial, but I'll come back to you. Victor, I'm particularly curious, and I'm sure people are curious here. Obviously, you transitioning from, say, engineering into finance, and you've shared a bit of that. But there's also the angle where you've also transitioned from, different industries into tech. What I always say to people, right, that the difference between people who work in tech and people that don't work in tech, in terms of like those who actually succeed in tech, is a mindset shift. It's really not about the know-how. Like you can be an expert and thrive in any industry anyways, but tech is particularly different because of all the craziness that happens there. So tell us, Victor, what mindset shifts would you say have helped you embrace finance in tech, from this different angle you're coming from? Because it would then help people who are not in tech know how they can leverage their traditional or their non-traditional path or the traditional skill sets to now go into tech and then take, more non-traditional paths as well. So, yeah.
No, absolutely. For those coming from non-traditional tech paths and want to like move into tech, one thing that you have that is a big edge is your difference, right? Tech moves really fast. There's a lot of innovation. So there's need for people with fresh perspective and fresh lens, to financial challenges. You see, for example, CEO poaching individuals from other companies, not because they don't have experts within those companies, but they want new people who can come with fresh perspectives, fresh lens to help solve any challenges the company is facing. So for me, the mindset shift that I had when I moved to tech was the need for continuous learning, because it moves really fast. Every new weeks, every 2 months, 3 months, there's new innovations, there's new KPI. So the ability to have that mindset of continuously learning will make you stay relevant in the tech environment. And then secondly, like I also mentioned, business curiosity and adaptability is a very big one. So ability to be curious, to want to know your stakeholders' pain points, to want to know more about the companies, the company challenges, and then the adaptability to model your learning to see how you can solve for those challenges will go a long way and make you stay relevant. KPI change based on business needs, based on the company's new mission, for example. So that ability to just connect to those real business problems, to connect to those real business levers, like, for example, increasing user growth, platform scalability, cost to serve, cost per unit, all of those elements, being able to connect to the company's levers and key parameters, will go a long way. And you can only do that when you are curious to even know about those problems. And then you also have constant learning to see how you can acquire the necessary skill sets to help provide solution, improve your financial modeling, improve your analysis, to either provide visibility to stakeholders and business leaders on these key levers and parameters, or a big dashboard, real-time dashboard that can provide those informations to decision makers to make fast and quick decisions or pivots where need be. And then the second one for me again, that I think is very important, is being fluent in how the company makes money also matter a lot. You know, most people always think like, oh, my role as a finance person is just for me to report the numbers, you know, to just, you know, my analysis, post the journal entries, manage the budgets, manage the OPEX. But if you're unable to understand how the company make money, you won't be able to actually provide support to the key stakeholders. So I would say as a finance person, it's super important to kind of just take a step back to say, this company that I'm working for, or this company that I'm targeting, how are they making money? And then as a senior professional, you know, you then start thinking of, okay, how can I be more innovative? Come up with some innovative financing solutions or innovative strategy to help optimize how they make more money. You know, either will probably look for a way to provide to our customers maybe some sort of deferred payments, you know, so that way they can buy more. Or we look for a way to have some favorable payment terms so that way our vendors and customers can buy more, and then that way we are increasing our top line without exposing ourselves to bottom line risk, you know. But if you're unable to kind of understand how the company is making money, you won't be able to come up with some innovative solutions that will help increase the top line. So it's super important as a finance person, either in tech or in the traditional part, to have regular rhythm and connection with your salesperson, with your account managers, you know, with the director of business to say, how do you make money? You know, the fundamental way of how they make money. And then when you understand how they make the money, you can then come up with some innovative solutions to actually support them to increase the top line and then increase their revenue. I'm just going to pause here to see if there's any questions.
I love what you've said there. You just dished some wisdom. The one thing I picked two things actually that you've said is what I don't think people tend to realize or do, and I love that you mentioned that, which is seeing your difference, like the fact that you're coming from a different industry, seeing that as a strength and a weapon more than seeing it as a limitation, because that's what you find out there. People think it's a limitation. I don't have any experience in tech. I don't know how will I cope. I don't think they'll shortlist me. But what you've said is so important that actually, even the tech people want the non-tech people to come and get integrated because they want to see things from a fresh perspective, like new eyes. And those are the people who are more likely to challenge things because you've seen it done differently and worked. You know, we're not saying come and force it down their throats, like come and do it the GE way or come and do it the KPMG way, but it's like, oh, you're not doing it the right way. There's a way to be a lot more efficient, even if you're in tech, like, you know. So I think that is such wisdom, seeing that that difference as a strength. And then the second thing about like understanding how money is made. For me, this is not for finance. This is for every single person. Because if you don't understand how money is being made in the company you're working, you can never understand the value of your role. And if you don't understand the value of your role, please tell me how you want to grow. For me, that's important. Even in TA, it's something that we've always said in every company I've worked, like you have to understand why the business exists, like the products, how they make money, how are we trending, share price. Like you have to understand all those things because that's how you can connect it back to your work. And if you say, oh, if someone comes to you and says, I don't know, you're in operations or another role or even a lawyer in a company, and they ask you like, oh, you know, well, you guys are doing really poorly. You're not going to be that person who says, well, they're paying me my salary, so I'm okay. You don't want to be that person. You'll be stuck forever. You may grow based on like, oh, you have done 2 years. Next path is L5A or whatever levels they call. But you see, in tech, that's not how you grow. You actually grow based on impact. You don't grow based on tenure. You don't grow based on duration of time that you spend. So I really love that you've said that. I think that's like really, really strong wisdom that you've shared. Okay, so I know that, Victor, you don't have a team, do you? You are an individual contributor, correct?
Correct, yes.
So can we glean into your perspective as an interviewer? Because I know as a TA person, everyone is an interviewer in an organization, right? So if they're hiring on your team, you know, it's the team members that tend to interview the new incoming people. So as an interviewer, just give me your perspective, what has made, you know, maybe, I don't know what roles you've hired for, but I reckon that they're in finance, obviously. So what makes a finance candidate stand out to you in tech interviews beyond their technical competence? Because there's rumor on the streets that finance people, all you care about is, can you do the job? That's the rumor on the streets. I'm not the one that started the rumor, okay? even trained. You put just more people that can get the job done, you know. That demystify that for us. What else do you look out for beyond technical capability?
No, absolutely. You know, for you to get the interview invite, so meaning there's no question around your technical competence. You know, your CV already speak to that. So during the course of the interview, maybe the hiring manager, the interview and the chat with the hiring manager, your technical competence might be assessed. But when you move to the next round, there's no questions around your technical competence anymore. You know, what we are interested in is your soft skills. So for me, what really make a finance candidate stand out in tech interview is, and I've already mentioned this, business curiosity and adaptability, you know, because tech moves really fast, like really fast. A few years ago, we're talking of metaverse. Now, boom, we're talking of AI. You know, probably in the next few years, you know, we'll probably be talking about another big innovation. So it moves really fast. So for me, I look for candidates who understand their numbers, which is the technical competence, but then have the ability to connect those numbers to real business issues, to real business levers, you know. And this, for me, I tend to like pick it from the way they present their stories and the way they ask questions, you know, because if you are curious, you always ask the 5 whys, you know, why, and then, you know, there are stories and questions that can use to gauge their ability to adapt and flex based on business needs. So beyond technical competence, number one, business curiosity and adaptability is key for me. And the second one is stakeholder fluency. You know, I've already mentioned in tech, and Sadiq already mentioned that it's all about ownership. So you need to own a line of business. You own a subset of the profit and loss accounts. You know, you own specific things that you do. Nobody will actually hold your hands and babysit you to get your job done. They will need you to own what you do. And what you do sometimes might require input from other stakeholders. These are stakeholders that report to other managers. So it will involve some level of ability to influence people without not having a direct authority. So I tend to look for candidates that have ability to influence without not having the authority to influence. So stakeholder fluency is another thing that I kind of look for when I'm interviewing. Strong candidates demonstrate the fluency to manage stakeholders in different way, in the way they, for example, communicate. You know, is it clear? Are there like actionable messages? And are the messages tailored to the cross-functional partners or the issue at hand? You know, do they have or highlight in their answers ability to follow up, documentations, project planning, etc. So even though you're in finance, working in tech requires you to know how to manage people, to manage resources, to manage time, to communicate, to write memo, you know, to project manage. You know, this is super important, and these are stuff that I look out for. You know, is the candidate asking sharp questions? Did they show comfort with ambiguity? You know, are they afraid to challenge assumptions, or they are able to challenge assumptions respectfully? The third one, again, as it ties to finance, is storytelling. Storytelling is super important. So if I'm asking questions, you know, I don't want you to spend a lot of time communicating the numbers. I need the stories behind the numbers, you know, because the stakeholders you'll be working with or you'll be communicating those numbers with are not core finance people. You know, they are business people, budget owners, stakeholders management. What they need is the stories behind the numbers. You have the ability to extract insight from data. You know, do you have the ability to flag risk and opportunities? You know, do you have the ability to like make your numbers communicated to stakeholders in a simple layman language that is easily digestible by them? You know, do you have ability to see the bigger picture, you know, just by going through the numbers and then communicating this bigger picture in a clear and concise format? You know, can you suggest to business stakeholders new things that you uncover just by deep diving into your numbers? You know, these are super important things, you know, that I look out for when interviewing candidates. Again, it's not just about getting the analysis right. You know, it's all about driving impact through influence, storytelling, and business curiosity and adaptability.
Love it. Will you permit me to put you on the spot for a moment?
Absolutely.
Example of a question that you would ask to get one of these many things you've just shared as an interviewer. You know, how do you, because I mean it's heavy, right? Like, you know, ensuring that you're certifying through the process, you know, especially when it's not an assessment or a written assessment. This is an interview, it's more conversational more than anything. Give me an example of maybe 1 or 2 questions that you ask in order to get maybe XYZ. So for instance, you talked about, you know, the ability to influence stakeholders, you talked about like, you know, comfort with ambiguity and things like that. What types of questions or examples of questions would you ask in order to get that out of them?
No, absolutely. I think the first one would be, tell me a time when you are the project lead of a project or the lead of a project. How did you manage stakeholders' expectation and what was the output? And then the follow-up question to that would be, are there specific stakeholders that push back, during the course of the project? How did you manage the differences in expectation? And then lastly, I would then say, or point them to the right direction to quantify the impact they get from the project, and then if they achieve 100% of what their goals and KPIs were in the first place. And I think, again, I also chime in to say, are there like scope creeping in when the project is being executed? How do you manage all of these projects or the scope creep, into the project execution? So I think anyone that is able to come up with like a well-rounded answers to all of these questions will give me better information to use to assess their ability to manage stakeholders, to storytell, and at the same time, their curiosity when it comes to managing business portfolios.
Thank you so much. Yeah, sorry I put you on the spot, but yeah, you answered well. Sadiq, I know that I said I was going to come back to you on something that you said. And meanwhile, this conversation is quite interesting. Victor, I'm going to come back to you to tell us actually what you do, because we really haven't dived into what you do as a program manager for budgeting and all these exciting things that you touch on. But Sadiq, we talked about cover letters and stuff. I want to bring it down to reality, because the people that are here who are maybe job seekers at the moment, or looking to switch, whatever that looks like. So I know that we've talked about cover letters, we've talked about what's the word now? Culture as well. I know culture is very important when you're hiring, right? How do you assess for culture as the hiring manager?
Culture is one of the difficult things, right?
I agree.
I think culture, what I would say for culture is two ways I assess culture is throughout the interview, I'm assessing culture. The
Yes.
way you answer questions, your energy generally, right? Across your energy. Would this person be someone that can? So that's why you need to be able to speak. You might be a shy person, but you should be able to speak confidently, eloquently, and articulate, right? So, and it's not necessarily you must speak for me or anything, right? Just being able to
Communicate clearly, yeah.
There's all these filler words, a lot of those filler words, and being able to articulate your thoughts, right? So that I usually gauge culture throughout the interview, right? Then through also the examples you give and how you say you did those tasks. If you are saying that, oh, you just played a little role, if you don't put yourself as the person that like what Victor said, right? If you cannot particularly say what you did, right, in a project and how it impacted the business, do I want that kind of person? It doesn't tell whether that person is has ownership, right, or can really convey messages together. So culture is not necessarily about we're hanging out, we're chilling, we're the best of bodies. Is more around the culture of the big company. If the company has excellence, boldness, different type of things that their values, those are things I'm assessing for, right? So throughout the interview process, I assess for it. Then one question I ask is, how does the candidate, right? How would the candidate like to be managed, right? How would the candidate want their manager to bring out the best in them?
Yeah.
Ask them that question, right? To think about how does the person want to get managed. The person can give me a very good answer that I see that, okay, this person is someone that likes to solve problems, doesn't like to get micromanaged, or okay, there are some certain points in time that they would like to be handheld. There's no shame in. A lot of people like saying, oh, they don't like to micromanage. Sometimes being micromanaged is fine, right? If it's somewhere that you don't really know, if it's an area that you're not really conversant with, you need to be handheld for a certain number of weeks or certain stage, and then you left alone. So I want to also know that that's another question I try to ask candidates about.
Yeah.
Then, like I said again before, questions the person asks me, right? Whether the person is a culture fit, because you have to be someone that you're not just a yes ma. I don't want someone on my team that I'll just tell to do something. So that means if I'm not around, or if I'm busy, right, you cannot try to solve a problem. I need someone that can think out of the box. So you need to be able to ask me smart questions. If you're not asking me smart questions, I just feel like, okay, or you tell me you don't have questions, then I know that you're not someone that I want on my team. So those are some of the things. Those are the things that I try to get culture. I'll see whether that's the culture fit.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect response in terms of like assessing culture at every point in your conversation with them. I think that's very important because even for the HR team, that's usually primarily what they're looking out for beyond the technical competence, right? Because I mean, in whether you're a recruiter or your HR BP, even if you have a good understanding of the work that is being done on the team, it's still the people who are on the team who can really truly assess, right? So you do like the soft level, preliminary screen from a technical bay, but where we really spend the most time is like understanding if this person would be aligned to our culture. And I think one thing I wanted to also note here is, it's not about like finding people who would gel or blend in with the culture. Like you can literally be very different, from everybody else on that team, and you're still the right fit for the role because actually is in that your difference that makes you unique and special, and that's why they want you on the team. Because one thing that I personally challenge hiring managers on is like, don't hire the same people. There are many people that make that mistake because they don't either know better or they just think it's just easier to manage when everybody has the same vibe. Yeah, I love hiring. I'll tell you that many
I
managers
don't like that because I want somebody that would. The best guys on my team are people that I fight with a lot because
they
they are
challenge you.
questions, or if I say, oh, let's do something like this, they're saying no, it should be this way. Or the accounting standard, are you sure the accounting standard says this? And I'm like, okay, it's been a while I've read the accounting standard. They would then now correct me, right? So I always, and sometimes I just tell people, hey, this is what I'm thinking. If it's just people that are just yes sir, yes ma people, that vibes like me, maybe vibes like we will just blend. They will not be able to push back on things.
Yeah, because I remember I've had the hiring manager who felt like, oh, this new person that we hired on the team, they're so different, they're so quiet, everybody's so yuppie, and this one, I'm like, that's the beauty in having like, a diverse team. That's what diversity looks like. Diversity is not about like our skin color alone or where we are from. It's also in who we are in terms of like, our behavioral elements as well. And that's something to look out for when you're interviewing. Okay, I know that, time is really running out. So Victor, I'm going to come to you in a minute or two. Tell us what you do, because I feel like your job titles across your different companies that you've worked at, they've been different. So even me, I need to know what you do for a living.
No, absolutely. So I would say in Meta, I'm actually not in like a core finance like Sadiq, who does the technical accounting and finance. But nonetheless, my previous core finance experience have been super vital in my current role. So in my current role, what I do is I manage the budgets for our business process outsourcing. So, our Meta outsource some of the trust and safety initiatives to third-party vendors. So I manage the budget for those third-party vendors, roughly around across 30 sites in Europe, Middle East, Africa, APAC, and LATAM. It's a multi-billion-dollar budget. And this involves financial forecasting, headcount management, OPEX reporting to leadership, providing insight to how all this budget is being utilized across specific workflows and program. This involves a lot of financial analysis, scenario planning, which are core skills or technical skills I learned from my previous job, and then making sure we are reporting the numbers accurately, because all of these numbers at the end of the day, they find their way into the financial statement, and then the earnings call, the CFO share with the analysts, every quarter. So, in a brief, this is what I do.
That's interesting, and it sounds exciting. Now, my question for you is, and guys, please, we're almost wrapping up the moderated questions here. So start thinking of your questions, and feel free to come off mute when the time is here. Now, Victor, I am curious to know, because your role is, like you said, it's a nice intersection between core finance and program management, but not necessarily core finance. So can someone who is not a finance professional do the work you're doing?
No, absolutely. I always believe nothing is impossible. If you have like the curiosity to learn and then ready to like spend additional hours to learn and connect with your peers, who are more experienced than you in the role, you will always do better. So the key thing is just there are fundamental skill sets you need to have nonetheless to be able to like succeed in my role. Ability to analyze numbers. Are you very good with Excel? Are you good with Google Sheets? Are you good with SQL? Are you good with dashboard, Power BI, Tableau, or maybe Looker's, the Google equivalent? These are like the core fundamentals that will make you succeed in this role, because my role involves a lot of analysis. But then beyond just analyzing the numbers, we need to look for medium to communicate the numbers to the budget owners, to the stakeholders, to individuals. And then secondly, the soft skills part is just, again, and I've already mentioned that, stakeholders fluency and ability to collaborate with different individuals, either junior staff, senior staff, VP, senior leaders, etc. So just communicating effectively, understanding some of these key analysis tools will be super vital to success in this role. But again, if you don't have any core finance experience, yes, you can succeed, if you are ready to take the time to learn.
Okay, because the one thing that came to mind when I had looked at your profile was, because obviously there's like project managers, program managers, right? And I know in terms of my experience hiring both roles, you can hire them into different departments. They are not like for one, like a project manager can work in HR, can work in finance, can work in, but in the modality and the nitty-gritty of your own role, I just did wonder if, a normal program manager, maybe that has worked with different other departments and has done, some bits of data analysis. Because I'm thinking someone who's a business analyst, someone who's a data analyst can definitely pivot into your world, maybe much easier than someone who isn't very savvy or hands-on with lots of heavy data when it comes to analysis and stuff. So they don't even have to have like that financial background, but if they are really good with data, because all these things you've mentioned, like the BI, the Power BI, the Tableau, the normal people, I don't use this. Normal roles, but why not using them? But no, I'm not using Looker. I use Looker a bit in Andela, but it wasn't because I had to. It was because the finance guys and data analyst guys were using it, and that's what communicated data to me. So I had to learn some small things, but it's not a huge element of my role in terms of, will I not thrive in my role if I don't know how to use Looker? But for your role, you have to be able to use like SQL and all these other data and technology tools. So I reckon that, someone who is in general program management with some, flavor of data analysis can definitely pivot into your world, right?
No, absolutely, yeah. Like I said, absolutely. If you're just able to analyze the numbers and tell the stories behind the numbers, you succeed in this role. There might be a lot of some other reading involved, studying involved. For example, we also manage the payments with the vendors. So we need to go through the contract to ensure we understand the payment and the billing clause in the contract, and then operationalize all of these clauses. So again, all of this stuff is just about being humble enough to want to learn, and then you have the core fundamentals already. You can easily transition into my role.
Okay, guys, do you have your questions? I'm ready. I'm going to ask one more question to give you guys, space to get comfortable. You don't have to come, off mute if you don't want to. I would love for you to do that, but you can put your questions in chat, and I'm happy to read that out to the speakers if you have any specific questions. But whilst we're waiting for you, I want to ask one more question and then come to you guys. Okay, so let's talk about salaries. So obviously there's a whole thing about people wanting to get into tech primarily because of salaries, because that's literally the way that they think they can fast track their goals. Everyone has some plan you want to use money for. Like you want to buy a house, you have 5 children. I don't know what your situation is, but everyone needs money. And it just seems like, tech is where the money is at. So tell me about your perspective as people who are in tech. I mean, Sadiq, you've dealt with numbers in tech for a long time. You've done hiring. You've also, managed budgets. Victor, you've come into tech a couple of years ago. You're even managing budgets. You're managing headcount planning. So you do have a good sense of what this means or what this looks like actually in the tech ecosystem. So based on your experience so far, both of you, how would you say salaries in tech compare when you think about non-tech salaries in tech versus tech salaries in tech, and also traditional companies, non-tech industry, tech industry salaries? Who wants to go first?
Yeah, let me go first. First of all, because there are many people from different countries here, right? I don't think we'll speak about numbers, right?
Yeah.
But I would generally speak about my experience, right? And even from personal experience, I would say there is tech roles generally, at least in the early stages, right? are not at my level yet, or like from C level and VP level, but in the early stages, there's actually a premium in tech roles than other companies. I would give, for example, when I started off my career, when I started off my tech career, for example, what I was earning in Jumia, for example, my counterparts in KPMG were not earning that. I can categorically say, right? They were not earning that, but I was working crazy. I was KPMG used to work crazy hours too, but I had the exposure to so many things that people sometimes in KPMG take like 4 or 5 years. Because, for example, if you're in KPMG, you might start off by saying you're doing payroll auditing first before you move to something. But when I started, I was doing everything, everything. So I got exposed to so many things. So there's a premium in the early stage. Whether that gap has reduced right now, I can't really say. Right now, in those early roles, associate, senior associate, is that early premium, right? But when you start to get to senior manager, heads, VP, director, I think that's when the big companies, or like the older traditional companies, might most likely be outspacing the tech companies, right? Because all these other companies, because not a lot of tech companies are profitable, right? A lot of these older companies are not profitable, and they can afford to splash the cash. They have bonuses for all these bigger roles, because decisions are just you are paid based on decisions that you make, to be honest, in company. So a company that's like Coca-Cola, or not even the Coca-Cola, even maybe let me just look like maybe Dangote or so, not even Dangote, companies that have been here for a while, right? A VP in that company, the impact of his decision is huge compared to a tech company that is not yet profitable, right? So the VP in that company will not earn as much as the VP in a Dangote. Dangote will have shares, bonuses, huge bonuses, perks like cars, and those other things. Well, a tech company cannot afford to give you a car because they are still burning through cash and they don't yet have profitability. So they'll pay you maybe your base salary might even be more than that person's actual take home, but the whole was the compensation package. That person is way more than yours. So that's why you see sometimes these traditional companies, some of these people are VPs and all this level, they can't leave because the money is very huge, right? By the time you think of bonus of 100 million, right? At the end of the day, it's very difficult for them to step away from it, right? But tech companies, not a lot of tech companies offer it. But nowadays, I heard some tech companies give huge bonuses, but they are most likely profitable. So I would say in the early stages, there is that tech premium that you get. And the reason why there's that tech premium is because you are not getting taught a lot of things in the early stages in tech companies. You are the one that is having to figure out a way to solve things. So you should be very smart enough to solve things and fail and try again, fail and try again. But in all these traditional companies, in those early stages, they're literally teaching you a lot of things. They're not giving you a lot of complex tasks. Once you can prove that, okay, you can learn and they can you can solve small, simple tasks, they start to build you up over time. So I think the pay is also reflective of the complexity of the task that you get assigned.
Yeah, I hear you on that one, especially because every industry and even different companies have like very different compensation structures. So to your point, I completely agree. In tech companies, you probably get a much higher base. Like what hits your bank account is fatter than what hits the next person's bank account. But overall, at the end of the year, they probably are smiling more than you are smiling when they get their end of the year bonuses that you're not going to get. And then Victor, from your perspective, can you hear me?
Maybe just slightly. Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, maybe just slightly different perspective from Sadiq. So when we talk about the tech, right? Just want to break it down that tech has like different layers and tiers. So we have like the tier 1 tech, which is like the FANG. So Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and then Google. And then we have tier 2, tier 3 in those kind of tiers. So your salary package depends on which of the strata of tech companies you're actually fall into and you work into, right? And then again, it's like Sadiq already mentioned, it's a combination of so many factors. Your years of experience, the location where you are, the type of job you are doing. But I think ordinarily, I've worked with General Electric, which is like one of the biggest in its category, and Meta now. I would say, if I'm to use my example, I would say I think I'm getting better salary package in Meta than I was getting in General Electric. And this is because the salary package is broken down into so many components. So you have your base salary, and then you have stocks, which is restricted stock units. So you have like stock options, which could vest across 4 years. And then you have, medical insurance, comprehensive medical insurance for you and your family. So meaning you're not thinking of like paying for any medical expenses. You have pension, and they actually match your pension and sometimes go above 1% or 2%, So when you think about the full package, and then for some other companies, you have even non-monetized benefits, breakfast, lunch, dinner. So if you are going to the office Monday to Friday, you're not thinking of wanting to cook or do anything. You have phone that comes with internet that you're not really paying for. So when you kind of look at the full package of the benefits you have access to, I think tech is super, super attractive. But back to Sadiq's point, when you start getting to more senior level, the VP level, again, because tech they pay you well, but at the same time, they also get a lot from you. You have to work long hours compared to the traditional companies. At that senior level, truthfully, the traditional companies are places to be, especially at the VP and senior level, because now, you're managing team, you have, a lot of aides supporting you, you have special assistants, vehicle driver, especially in the African continent. But I would say at mid-level, at early entry level, the compensation in tech, especially in tier 1, the fang, it's super attractive and super impressive, and I think if anyone has the chance to get into any of these companies in the tier 1 category, I will encourage them to go for it. It's going to be life-changing opportunities.
I love it when you say special assistant. It's given senator, it's given president. But honestly, like in tech, yes, I agree. As someone who's been in tech as well, the salaries can be ridiculous, especially in startups where they just got funding. At this time, there's no direction. So anyway, if you sneeze that you want X amount, you're probably going to get what you asked for, because they're just looking for people that can come and be many things. And it means you're also sacrificing, some of your life, really. Like just throw work-life balance in the bin or in the ocean for a period of time, when you're in a startup especially. But that's also where you get built. That's where you really, like the skills that you get in a startup, like there's no fang that can give you. I'm just telling you, like there's no fang that can give you the skills that you get in a tech startup where you've actually seen blood come out of your skin as sweat, like that's kind, yeah. But it's so rewarding when the company starts to grow and blossom. But yeah, I'll come back to the comparisons. I know for a fact that I've tried to hire from certain organizations, I won't name names, where they want to move to a new company based on, oh, this is a sexy company, but these things that you mentioned, all of you both, is what is keeping them there. There's like long-term commitment in terms of like shares. There's guarantee of promotion. And let's not forget there's job stability. That's what these tech folks will not give you. And again, this tech without the code is really keeping it real and keep giving you real and honest conversations. Like, we want you to get into tech, we want you to thrive, but we also want to lay out the truth. There is no job stability. And that's something that you see people battle with, like anxiety of like, will I lose my job tomorrow? What's happening? Even in the healthiest looking companies. I mean, one can argue that Fang is profitable and very stable, in quotes, but they do the most layoffs, don't they? Because they also make the most crazy decisions, right? And they regret it after they're done it. So again, that's tech. Things can happen a lot faster than in more traditional settings. More traditional settings too, was it Sadiq, your point about like the impact of your decisions at a much senior level? It would be vetted. Like before they give you the blessing, it's a decision that has to stand and be tested and tried for years. Even if you feel you keep trying it out. When you say in tech, if you feel small, you can pivot quickly. That's the thing about tech. So, and whoever made that decision, your head can be on the line for it. So again, these are all the points we want you to understand, learn from, and then find ways to adapt and adjust. If you do get into tech, or if you're already in tech. Okay. I could keep asking and ask. I have lots of questions that I have not asked them, but that's not why we're here. We're here for you guys, and the next couple of minutes are for questions. I know we don't have a high turnover today or turn up today, so even more reasons for you to ask all your burning questions. It doesn't have to be finance related. It can be about job search. It can be about interview tips. It can be about any advice that you feel like any of us can give you in the course of whatever journey that you're on. So, I will keep quiet and wait for you guys to ask your questions. Feel free to come off mute or put your questions in chat.
Hello, good afternoon.
Okay, hi.
Hi. My
Oh,
name is
it?
Oshwari.
Yeah, Oshwari.
Oshwari.
Sizwe, you'd be next after Oshwari.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the speakers. You've been very informative. So I just have a weird, funny question. You might have heard it before, but currently I'm a medical doctor and I've been a medical doctor for a few years. I'm currently practicing in the UK and I am trying to gradually build a career for myself outside of clinical medicine because I think in the next 10 years, I might not want to be in clinical medicine because of how hectic it is. So I'm trying to think about the future, work-life balance, all of that. So I've been advised by a lot of people to look towards tech. And I don't even know where to start from, what to do, what kind of courses to get. Someone advised me to get a degree in project management, plus or minus an MBA, and then I will be very, very hireable. But I don't really know if this is practical and realistic. So I was hoping that from people who actually are hiring managers, what do you think a medical doctor can bring to the table and how do you think I can get there? What kind of things do you think I need to put in my bag from now to be able to, in the next couple of years, set myself up to be, independent, financially stable, and have a work-life balance? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Who wants to go? Victor, Sadiq?
I could go first.
Yeah, backup, by the way. I'm here as backup. So
Yeah. No, thanks. That was a really great question, and thanks for asking. So it's gonna my answer will come into perspective. Do you want to move entirely away from the medical line, or you still want to like maintain some of your experience in the medical line? If it's yes, then you might want to consider wellness and psychological safety department of tech. So because the company I work for example, people who review content, who moderate content, are exposed to a lot of crazy content out there, from self-harm to name it. So there's always medical experts or medical practitioners that help manage some of the psychological issues that come from the exposure to all of this crazy content out there. So that might be a part you want to explore, providing the wellness and psychological support for people who work on content moderation and are exposed to crazy content out there. So I think that is something you might want to look into. And for these, I will encourage that you should do your MPM, PMP. That might be a low-hanging fruit you might want to start with. It's comparatively cheaper. You can self-study and then you get that. So that kind of give your profile some project management experience and being able to manage programs and projects. The second aspect is, if you're thinking of entirely deviating and moving away from the medical field, then MBA might be a good opportunity for you to pivot. That will teach you business strategy, that will teach you so many other things. And it doesn't necessarily need to be the core tech firm. There are a lot of tech firms that are also in the medical field. I don't have like a name at the tip of my finger, but there are a lot of tech doing beautiful things in the tech sector, and they are more at the intersection of core clinical medicine and tech. That might be another area you might want to move into after your MBA. So with your MBA, you just have like the business strategy idea, you have the management and leadership skill sets, and then with your clinical experience, you can move into all of this medic tech firm that will find your profile super attractive. But if you're looking at the traditional tech firms, the popular one, that the wellness and psychological safety program is an area you might want to look into, and that might involve you, getting your PMP and then certified as a project manager to give anyone looking at your profile that you have the experience to manage program and projects. I'm going to pause here to get Sadiq's insight as well.
Sadiq.
I think Victor said everything I wanted to say, to be honest. I think, as a medical doctor, you already I reckon you have a lot of experience, right? It won't be easy to just pivot into tech junior roles, right? So it will be good, like Victor said, you want to get into not necessarily the high level tech roles, but somewhere in the middle. So getting an MBA, right, would be a good way to, if you are going to deviate away from what's the name, medical line entirely. MBA will help you quickly bridge that gap of business, and even in MBA, they will teach you accounting, finance, all those other things that you need to be a business person. So you can go into business operation, program manager, product manager, all those kind of things, right? With your MBA. And then you can stick to health tech. There are a lot of health techs that, especially now in Africa, that health tech is just even still starting. They've not even really started, to be honest, because Africa is still growing in that space. A lot of the market is still trying to warm up to health tech. So I still see a future where a lot of medical doctors are going to move into what's the name, the tech space. I think I was seeing on Twitter this popular guy, what's his name, Apoko Doctor, right? He's moved now from all his content. I saw that he raised money doing some an app that is creating, right? So you can become something like that, right, over time. So don't box yourself. And then maybe if you want to go into data analysis, right? I know someone who has been a pilot and went to go do an MSc for 1 year quickly in data analysis and has pivoted from being a pilot, right? And then moved into being a data analyst for a company. So you just probably need to just get 1 or 2 courses, and then also be ready to do maybe some freelance stuff on the side to just build up your portfolio, because you also don't want to go and start an entry-level job, right? To be taken into, so you want to build up your resume with some of those pro bono work, right? Yeah, that's what I'll say.
Thank you, Sadiq. So I'm going to come from a very different perspective. So I guess, Oshari, thank you for asking this question. My first question for you, and you don't have to answer here, but maybe a question for you to go back and reflect on, is why you're even thinking about this. Because a couple of things stood up to me that you said about like work-life balance and tech. I don't really see the correlation there. Like, let's just keep that real. We just literally talked about that. So if that's your mission and vision, abort mission, right? I'll be very real and keep it real with you. But if it's about like just pivoting because you truly do not want to become a medical doctor anymore, you're just like done with that, and you want to do something you consider different, then that's a different conversation. But if it's about work-life balance, let's just put that on the back seat, okay? And then focus on the fact that you want to pivot. If truly you just want to pivot for other reasons that make sense in terms of like switching careers, then yes, many of the things that you've said would apply, but it also depends on where you are. I don't know, you didn't share context on, how long you've been a medical doctor for. Did you just leave school? Because if that's the case, if you had less than 5 years experience, I'm of the opinion that there's nothing wrong with you starting from scratch. You probably make way more money in a startup or a tech company at their most junior level, even as like entry with 0 experience, than your medical doctor work, right? So it depends. It really depends. So think about that. Where are you in terms of your career, and where do you want to be? So if you want to do project management because someone said that, I would say sit with that, right? And that's the whole essence of Tech That Code. We don't want people to just pivot for the sake of pivoting. We want you to think about your current existing skill set and how those can be applied. Sadiq made a huge point. I was going to say that as well about like health tech. There are different aspects of health tech. There's even people, in Europe, for instance, there are lots of doctors who work for tech companies, just different tech companies, as an what do you call them, like offsite doctors. So for instance, in many of these big companies, they have doctors that they're not available in the organization, but if you're going through like any mental stress or anything that you feel like you need help with beyond, say, the NHS in the UK, for instance, this company doctor, they are paying big money for that. You can be that, and that is you working in tech, right? You can be doing this for 3 or 4 different organizations, or committed to one organization. That's one aspect of tech people don't really know about, but it's very common here, where people actually are like consultants to tech organizations, and they are the go-to people that they say, oh, go and speak to the company doctor. Again, and let's be real, medicine is like, you can be a surgeon, you can be this, you can be that. I know you, Victor, you talked about like, the health and well-being bits. But I want to believe that for you to become a psychologist, right, or help people with mental health, that's like a whole different degree. I think it's going to be different from like regular coaching that you just went to go and become a coach. I don't know, Oshwari, you probably know more than us. I'm more a medical doctor. I wanted to be, but I'm not. So, think about that. how long will it take you to pivot in that sense or switch? Would you have to go and take a full degree, or could you do another role that an MBA can easily cover for? So that would be my advice for you, but there is no limit. I mean, Sadiq in Andela, I remember we had a medical doctor who actually became a software engineer. And they literally, and that was when Andela was Andela, when they used to do the foundation program. So people actually come and get trained. 6 months, this person was an engineer, like the superstar engineer. We had fishermen, we had stories like that. So first off, nothing is impossible. Don't limit yourself. But also, I think you need to do some sitting with yourself and reflecting on what you really want to do before you just go about. I'm talking like this because I dislike people taking random courses just because. So I prefer you sit down, especially when you feel like you've grown a bit, you're done with school. You can actually sit down for a couple of months and think about what you want to do. I'm someone, for instance, I've always been an advocate for, like, you don't need to do an MBA or an MSc right after uni because you don't even know what you want to do. And I'll be that person till tomorrow. I don't change my stance on that. If you come out of school and you know what you want to do, then please go for it. If your parents have the money or you have the money, go and do it. But don't do it because you just feel like that's the next step, but you're not sure if you're going to use it. So, education requires a lot of time, requires a lot of investment, and no skill is a waste. But at the same time, don't invest yourself too much in something that you end up saying, you know what, I don't need. Right, so that would be my approach. I think sit with all of this first, and then you can go into the practical steps that Sadiq and Victor have highlighted. But I feel like before you dive into anything, you need to really know why you want to do it. And this is where, speaking to mentors or speaking, even paying for like an hour session would help you really narrow down what you should be thinking about. This is where investment really comes into play. So that would be my advice. I don't know if anyone else, even could share their perspective on the call. You never know. We may be the moderators and the speakers, but some people have way more experience than us that could, give you some insight. Yeah.
No, good perspective, Jess, and thanks for sharing. And again, maybe just like pivot away from tech, it doesn't necessarily need to be tech. If you're thinking of work-life balance, like I said, I used to work for General Electric and I was supporting the healthcare division. We actually have medical doctors who were supporting with medical equipment sales, and they were doing really well, by the Nigerian standards. So if you're thinking of work-life balance, truthfully, tech is probably maybe no way you should be looking at, but medical equipment sales might also be like an interesting path you might want to explore. But back to Jess' point, yes, I think this require deep reflection. Just don't make that rush decision. Just take some time, reflect, speak with people, connect with a lot of mentors and stakeholders, and you might get better clarity on the best path forward for you.
Amazing. Thank you, Victor. Oshwari, do you have any thoughts on what we've said? Do you want to share anything, give us more context, or do you feel satisfied with this?
I'm sort of satisfied in that, okay, tech might not be the only option or the most appropriate option. So I've been working for about 6 years, but I'm currently in obs and gynae, so gynecology basically, and in a few years I should be a consultant gynecologist. But I'm just thinking, I see my seniors, my consultants, and I see that this is not really the kind of life I want to have when I'm 50, doing 12-hour shifts, doing nights, and all of that. So that's why I'm just trying to cast my net wide and see what else I can do that I can combine with my current experience and knowledge to build something more realistic for me in those later years of my life. So if tech will not give me work-life balance that I'm looking for, and I appreciate that insight, because I did not know. I thought tech people were just chilling in front of the computer all day and having the time of their lives. But clearly I was wrong. So yeah, I might still try to combine a little bit of it. My thing is just not clinical medicine, heavy on the night shifts and doing all those, So yeah, if I have a structured time frame for my work, even if that in that time it's heavy, as long as there's a limit where the work ends, and I'm fine. So yeah, thank you so much for all the answers. I would sit and think about everything everyone has said. Thank you so much.
One thing, just based on the context you've shared now, and thank you for sharing that context. You can also consider, right? So I know Florence Arewa is in public health, I did speak at her event recently, so she might have some insights for you as well. But the one thing I wanted to say is, if you do want to pivot into something else while keeping what you have, you can also try to be more in control of your hours. Maybe it's not going to happen in 1 year, maybe a little over, where you learn a new skill set that will be applicable anywhere and everywhere. So think, even data analyst, right? You can go and take a course, even PMP. There's some things you can do where if you're in any country, you can do some work with some companies remotely, and you're the one in charge of your hours. Really, you're like, oh, I want to work 3 times a week. See, this life, there's nothing that's impossible. So you can think about that and say, hey, I want to do 3 days a week, 2 days a week, or from this hour to this hour, and that could be something that you can eventually be in charge of. So again, think about it, and then yeah. Florence, do you want to come off mute and say something? Because I know you're like the mama of public health. So if you've got something, feel free to come off.
Yes, so I kind of partly agree with some of the things Victor said about project management, because you can be a public health practitioner and become a project manager or program manager. And because in project management, you will not have to lose all the skill sets you've acquired over the years and experiences you've had. So they will come relevant, and you can just choose to then focus on health, which Victor had previously said. So what public health does for a lot of doctors that I know is that it helps them to have an area of specialization, and you can, with that, have a full, a well-balanced life that you are seeking for. So like Jess mentioned, that you might need a deep reflection and speak to people who have walked your route. I know medical doctors who are now public health practitioners and who are doing well. So you might need to find out what they were doing previously. They probably have gone through what you're going through now, and they may have more information or more knowledge and insights to be able to help you, maybe, and help you on what's best decision that you would take. So think about public health, think about project management in public health, and speak to people who have been medical doctors but have actually left that profession into something similar, and they've used the skill sets they've acquired before to make the best of their continuing life.
Thank you so much, Florence. Thank you. I'm mindful of time. I know that we had Sizwe. I'm hoping he hasn't jumped off now, because he was going to go next with his question after Oshwari. But I've seen that he's left a note saying thank you for the session. So I don't know if he jumped off. Sizwe, if you're still on the call, please feel free to ask your question. Otherwise, we can move on to the next person. I know we had a question in chat, but I know that we had some hands up. Is Sizwe on the call? I think he's jumped up.
Yeah, he's left.
He's left. Okay, that's all right then. So can I just read the question that we have in chat before we come to Lillian Ukazi? Lillian, please don't jump off. Just wait. We'll come to you in a bit. So this question is to Victor. It's from Shogo Funsho. The person says, in terms of career growth, would you advise someone stays longer in a company or change jobs after a few years? If you advise someone to stay longer in a company, how can one mitigate slow growth or job loss, as this has been common in big tech?
Hey, Shogo, that's my brother from another mother. Good to hear from you, man. So again, the perspective is it's not like a straightforward answer, right? The first question I will ask is, number one, in your current role and the people you work with, are you satisfied? Do you feel fulfilled? Do you feel valued? And do you get the right growth and development support you need, to keep getting better as a professional? So if the answer is yes, then it's okay, to look inward. And then again, the most important question is also the trajectory of the company. Is the company experiencing growth? If you go through their financials, year over year, how is like their number looking? Is their revenue growing year over year? Are they innovating with new ideas? Because when the company top line increases and they are innovating, there will be more opportunities for larger scope. There will be more opportunities for promotion. So if the answer is yes, then you can, you might want to stay a while, a bit longer, to build the deep domain expertise that will probably put you up for promotion. But then if the answer to the questions I've listed is no, then you might want to probably start exploring opportunities out there. If probably you're not well supported in terms of growth and opportunity, the company's numbers are not looking good year over year, their revenue is not increasing, their market share is not increasing, you don't feel valued as a team member, then you might probably want to start exploring opportunities out there. And again, yes, I've seen people who explore the strategy of jumping from one company to another to keep increasing and moving into their next level. But it's just that I think it's super good to create a balance in how you jump, because you might lack deep expertise, especially as you get to that senior level. So I would say, again, just think deeply to say, in my current role with my current company, am I feeling valued? As the company as a whole, is the company growing? Are they expanding in the market share? Because when the company is doing well, there'll be more scopes, there'll be need for more teams, there'll be need for more managers, you move into manager position and then you keep increasing. But if the answer is no, and then you might want to probably start positioning yourself, revamping your CV to start exploring for opportunities out there. But the advantage of staying in the company for a while, 4 or 5 years, is just that you build deep technical expertise, in that sector as you relate to that company. But the decision is all about yours to take, depending on the answers you give to the questions I've listed.
Thank you, Victor. Sadiq, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think Victor has said most of the things, right? To be honest, is what I look out for in a company, right? Is same thing. Why I've stayed at MCOPA longest is because I want, if the company is growing, so what I'm managing, like I said, I've managed Uganda, I've managed South Africa, I launched business in South Africa. In fact, I just handed the business over recently to somebody else. I launched our Ghana entity. So there's been a lot of work and my title has really just been head of these countries. In terms of title change, I've never really had maybe moved to director, right, within MCOPA, but I've been growing in terms of scope, and then even the P&L I'm managing now. When I started Nigeria, right, our revenue we were selling a very low amount. Now what we're selling, we laugh at what we were doing 4 years ago. So we've constantly grown. Like what Victor said, if the company is growing, there will be new roles to come up, and then you as yourself as well. You need to constantly, like if you remember when I said beginning of the webinar, you need to constantly be evolving with the company. So the company will be it will be changing every quarter, every 6 months. You yourself needs to constantly change. Don't just sit down there and just expect change to come and meet you. People to come and tell you to change, right? There's one thing, Jess, if you remember what we used to say in Andela, you own your own learning, right? So you need to constantly be learning new skills, and it's not about taking a course. It's about looking at, okay, the next where the company is going towards now. What skill set do I need to have, right? To be able to be successful at this level where it comes there. Constantly improving yourself, right? Once you are getting that growth from the company and you're seeing you are growing yourself, there's no problem, there's no harm in staying in that company, right? If you're not getting that again from the company, or you don't see that you're valued again, you might decide that, okay, it's time for me to stop. Or you see that even you yourself, you're tired of changing, right? Like I've gotten to a point where in a tech company that I was actually tired of the constant changes. And I'm like, now I'm tired of these changes in this company. I want a new change in a new company. I started looking for a new job. So you might decide that at this point you want to make a change and you change. So there's no harm in making those changes. It's just that I won't advise in terms of you're making changes for 1 year, you're doing 1 year, 18 months, like back to back 3 or 4 jobs, right? It's red. I'm sure everybody knows that. It's really red flag for Muslim, for people, for recruiters.
Yeah, I agree. I think what I can add to that is, as hiring managers and recruiters, I always push for my hiring managers to have empathy as well, because one thing I know is some people did not intentionally stay 18 months, 1 year, right? And this is why CV writing has changed. Like your CV should tell a story. Like your CV should tell a story. Okay, so if you know that the reason why you've stayed in one company is one for 1 year or 6 months, and it looks like you're just jumping, it's not intentional, you can actually write it there, redundancy, so people have that context. Because if a hiring manager has that bias for like, oh, you haven't stayed in a company for a long time, I don't think you're going to stay with us too. If they don't have the context, you're just not going to know. And this is where I saw people, like to see the story in cover letters. Some like to leverage your CV. So make sure you're as clear about things that could shortchange you as much as possible in every element that presents as first impression of you. So think CV, think your LinkedIn, whatever. That's one thing I'd say. So sometimes it's nobody's fault. But in this case where you're intentionally trying to like move, if you don't have any good justification for moving, my only advice would be stay as long as you're happy, but make sure you are keeping abreast and up to date of what's happening in the market. So for instance, even after I made the move from Nigeria to the Netherlands, like I knew I wasn't about to leave a job I just joined, right? But people were reaching out to me. And I would tell them categorically that I'm not looking to move, but I'm happy to have a conversation. Not because anything they will say will excite me. I don't think there's anything they could have said to excite me after 2 months that I just moved. Do you understand? But for me, it was about building my network, one, and also it was about knowing what's obtainable out there. Like, what would people pay me for how they see me based on what I've put out there? So for me, I wanted to know what was obtainable at all times. So that would be my advice, that even if you feel like, everything is perfect where you are, it's just good to make sure you are not lost when it comes to what's out there, what's happening. The market is shifting almost every quarter, really. So it's just good to know what's happening, even if you're not going to use that information so much. And then you might use the information after you've stumbled across that, this show, they reached out to me, they can pay me double my salary, and the role is exciting and the company is healthy. That's a revelation. So you might do what you want to do with that. Or maybe you want to be tied to the company. You're like, again, it's all a personal decision. But I just always advise people, stay in the know what's going on, build your network. You may need them in 5 years, you may not need them today. So that'll be my advice. You don't need to move if there's no reason to move. Yeah. Okay. All right. Lillian Ukazi, you can go now. Ask your question, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm glad I joined this webinar because I've learned a lot already. Okay, so I have had several experience in sales, working with banks and several fintech companies here in Nigeria, and it has been an amazing experience, really. How does a salesperson factor properly into tech, and what are the key skills that will enhance effective engagement on the role? Thank you.
Let me take that. So sales, right? In fact, I will tell you, Lillian, tech is looking for sales. I will tell you from a Nigerian context, right? Because I manage and I know a lot of people in tech ecosystem. There is a lack of salespeople in tech industry. So they are looking for people, be it B2B sales, be it door-to-door sales. Tech is looking for, because if you look at it, right, a lot of companies in Nigeria, either before the evolution of tech, it was either big companies, bank, which is their traditional market, big companies and banks, and then you have the small SMEs that the MD was basically the man that used to go and get all the jobs. Sales was never really a skill set. The people that had sales people were the multinationals, Guinness and the likes. Those guys are not moving. But if you are a salesperson right now, right, your skill sets are so important right now for in tech companies, right? Because they don't have. So you can step into tech if you while still doing your sales, tech expertise, right? So tech people, don't be shy to apply. Look for companies that have a blend of offline and online, right? Tech. So a typical example can be a Money Point, right? They will have salespeople or account managers that also tech, right? Even M-Copper, for example, right? We're constantly looking for salespeople, right? Every time. So you can join, you can check out our website. You see people that salespeople, sales roles out there. So sales is something that it is not, the market is not saturated in the tech industry. So I don't know if that answers your question, or you're talking about you want to pivot into what's the name, a technical role from sales.
No, that does answer my question. It does answer my question. And I also asked, like, what are the skill sets, that will make one very, stand out in those job roles in the tech industry?
Yeah, so I think understanding the product, right? Any tech company, understanding the product and the customers. The customers are the tech companies where they want to sell to. So, and as a salesperson, you need to understand the product to be able to sell it, know the customers who that will be able to buy it, right? So once you can showcase that to a lot of these tech companies, right, they would instantly want you. They would, like I said, they are looking for salespeople, a lot of salespeople. So if you can showcase, if you can do a bit of research, comes back to what I said already, do a bit of research, and this is also what product managers do, right? Product managers, they are building products for customers, right? So once you can understand the customer that tech company is trying to sell to, you understand their product. Yes, you're not in the company, but understand from researching the company, you understand what the company is trying to do or what their product is. Once you understand the product and who they're selling, you will be able to answer questions. You'll be able to shine in the interview, to be honest.
Thanks, Sadiq. Victor, do you have anything you want to add, or should we move on to the next question?
No, I can't. No, I would love to. Hi, Lillian. How are you? Lillian, I can.
Yeah.
Sadiq,
I'm
I
fine,
can connect
thank you.
Lillian to you in case you need a professional accounts manager, in M-Copper. She's my wife's twin sister. So
Victor, it's like you know everybody on this call at this point.
surprisingly, really. All right. So maybe just a few points. And I think Sadiq already mentioned everything. But one few points I would love to say is, you already have the technical expertise. So meaning you will likely get invited for the interview. But I think maybe the gap here is how well are you selling yourself during the interview? It's super important to quantify the impact you've made in your current role. How have you added to the top line by either increasing the user growth or probably expanding the market share? So just being able to list out this impact when you are interviewing for a new company is super important. And then the second point, which Sadiq mentioned, is understanding the product of the company you are interviewing with. So if you're interviewing for, say, M-Copper, for example, you should be able to not at advanced stage, but understand their product, how they are making money, their business model, and then the strategies you will use, for example, to expand their market share in the region you are interviewing with. So I think these 2 points, it's super vital when you have the opportunity to be interviewed for any sales role in the tech industry.
I really don't have much to add, Lillian. I feel like they've hit the nail on the head, to be honest. I think the two big things would be you need to do as much as you can to keep advancing yourself, right? So even in your sales role, what can you add on to that to make you stand out as a sales professional in comparison to the other salespeople that you work with or in the next organization? So maybe you have some strong data skills, whatever it is, beyond what you require to get your job done, just getting your job done, right? How do you take it a step further? If there are presentations and stuff in the organization, are you the go-to person? Are you the numbers girl that understands how to sell the story? Like, you get what I mean? So there has to be something that you can find, that you hold on to, that this one, out of this team, I can see that they don't have it, the weakness, they're just weaknesses. I will go and develop that as a strength and use that in my next role. So that's number one. Number two is you can learn everything you want to learn, right? And if you don't position yourself strategically, then it's a waste. And this is why I don't push people to just go and take courses. Like, if you take the courses, all well and good. If you feel like that's your next step, fully supportive. But you need to make sure that CV, when you put it on your CV, people can actually see the ROI of the courses that you took, right? So it's beyond pasting the name and the certificates. Like, it's really beyond that. There's so much more you can do with your CV. So I always tell people, like, you invest in yourself, you pay so much money to do all these courses. But ordinary wants more money to go and do CV review from someone who can engage you with questions, or pay for Gemini or whatever, because even ChatGPT is limited. The other day I was busy arguing my ChatGPT while you're giving me wrong information, but story for another day, But like, speaking to experienced people about, this is my experience, this is my current CV, this is what I have. How can I make sure that this is screaming in my resume that nobody's going to miss it? So if you're going to invest in yourself, make sure you invest in yourself in the full effect. So that would be my own 2 cents that I add to that. Okay, Lillian, are you okay with our responses? Do you have any follow-ups before we move on? Be mindful of time here.
Okay, yeah, I'm okay with the responses. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. B Race. I called you B Rice last time.
No, I think for sure.
Yeah, it is Rice.
Sorry, it's Rice. So I'm correct. Wait, is that
Yes.
following? Who is the next person? Did I miss it? I think it's her.
No, I don't think Florencio has answered. Has asked, and he was. I see him as number 1 here.
So should he be going before you then?
Yeah, I believe
My
so.
bad. I missed you. I'm sorry. Florencio, please carry on. You can unmute.
All right. Good day, everyone.
Hi.
Yeah. It's nice seeing you again, Victor. Victor was my 2 year senior in high school. Anyway,
Brother.
so here's my question. So actually, right now I practice. I'm a pharmacist, but I don't practice as a pharmacist. I work as a brand manager with a Thai Australian company, and actually, I don't see myself still working for any company in the next 4 years because um, planning to start up something which is quite novel here in Nigeria. And I have all the business plan drafted out and I've written the proposal. And from what I have currently, if I want to start up full force and have the business running, it's something that's going to cost as much as 100 million naira to start up for the first 6 months. So it's also going to involve the technology part where I would need to involve some technology vendors who would maybe create an app, also working with some of the mobile telecom companies for their fast code. So my major question is how do you approach technology vendors for things like this, and also for the financing part? Um, Writing a proposal to DFIs like the Bank of Industry or requesting for grants, I'm really having a tough one around it. So that's my question.
This will be for you. You've brought to leave the name a couple of
Yes,
times.
for me, yeah. Okay, so I would say for businesses, for it's entrepreneurship is not easy. That I'll tell you for free, right? So it's a very so just make sure that you are ready for the ups and downs, right? You can go and speak to founders, right? They'll tell you that even people that have grown big companies, it's something that they wish if they think back they don't want to do, but just be sure that seems like you're sure of what you want to do, right? What I would say is, yeah, one thing investors or people that want to invest in companies look out for is, I would say, if you can start off a company without having to spend a lot of money, right? Start it off and start to get customers. You can get paying customers. There's nothing much more beautiful to be able to show investors that, hey, with what I have so far, I've gotten this amount of customers to open their wallet and pay me for this service. And I've been building it with you doing manual processes, right? Serving these 100 customers, but there are thousands of people that I want to serve that this product, right? Once you can show to me as an investor that, okay, this guy has, with the small money that he has been able to build something that it might be Google Sheets, but you use the what's the name, no code, something that you can quickly just build a website by yourself and you'll be able to service 10 customers or 100 customers serving constantly every month. Okay, I can I'm willing to invest more in this guy. Give this guy 10 million naira, take 10 million and grow your base, right? Especially in this climate that we're in right now, it's very difficult to see. There's no more free money like before in tech again, where a lot of VCs now are just liking the idea of Africa and just trying to diversify. A lot of people now are very shrewd with their investments, so it won't be easy to see someone that will just give you money for just a smart idea. Ideas are a dime a dozen now. It's more in execution. I have so many ideas. I will tell you, right? The real pudding is in execution, right? So if you can execute now and without compromising a lot of your savings, I'll say, right, to get paying customers, that would show that okay, there are actually people that want your product. So there are products that you might think might be an awesome solution, but there are not many people out there that sees valuable, right? So a lot of now investors are actually trying to weed out all those companies. So I'll say find a way to build a prototype that doesn't require a lot of investment, that you can just need build by yourself without getting external funding. So that way you can have proof of concept. And that way, if you have proof of concept, you can even now actually actually control the terms of the shares you're going to give out and money that comes in, right? Is when you don't have proof of concept and people want to give you money, the ball will be in their court and they'll say, I'll take 30% of your business that I'm not sure that this product is going to sell, right? So, yeah, that's my advice. I hope that was helpful. And Victor can also chime in as well.
No, thanks, Sadiq. I think you've covered it all. And Follow Show, good to connect again. We'll connect on LinkedIn, okay? Sorry, I've not responded to your messages.
You're being busted. But then,
I'm sure, like, I don't know if that was helpful as well to you, right?
Yes. I totally value what you said. Yes, starting small, having a proof of concept, and then you could have a basis for negotiation. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
exactly.
yeah, I actually don't think there's any more to add. I'm not a pro in that space, but luckily we got finance Oga here to do justice to that. But thank you so much for your question. I have to say that we're at time, and we're going to take Kola's question next, and then try to wrap up as quickly as possible. So be right, can you go?
Hi, Sadiq, Victor, Jess. Thank you very much for today. So very quickly, I've written it down there. Just giving you update, nothing great. The market is still SHIT. It's even worse, but I'm hoping something good will happen. But I haven't been idle, but it's very disheartening. However, I'm very curious about, maybe this is for another day, not necessarily today. If you have any insights as to what's happening with the market, you're here. But also about this, you're encouraging people here to look into tech without the code and everything. And it's really disheartening to see how folks who live in this part of the world, what do you think about this location agnostic pay versus geo-pay? I'm very clear on it. There is nothing like geo-based pay. That is the most it is just insane that people are getting away with that for doing the same work someone is doing, telling me cost of living. But anyway, maybe another day. But yes, this is something, Jess, that we need to talk about. You're muted.
Yes.
Thank you. I think we can start the conversation now, so your questions do not get unanswered. And
Great.
I think it's a blessing that we have Victor and Sadiq who are actually in finance. Obviously, I have a lot of thoughts as a TA person, but I'll probably be mute and let them speak because we have them here today. And then the next one I can talk about it. So who wants to go, Victor or Sadiq? So, Victor, I know that we're trying to wrap up quickly, but maybe you guys can do a minute, 2 minutes max and give your thoughts.
No, again, I empathize with you with the condition of the market. I don't know if you guys can hear me. Oh, good. It's been really, really tough, truthfully speaking. And it's just so very surprising that a few years ago, it was like the market for the employees. And now it's turned overnight because of the series of layoffs and became the market for the employers. But nonetheless, I love the attitude, learning skills by the side, just getting engaged, which is super good because, what you are doing is you are positioning yourself and getting ready for when that opportunity will come. In terms of geo salary, unfortunately, it's more like the forces of demand and supply and the cost of living. It's just more around who are available to be employed based on this salary. Even for example, in the same location, the salary you'll be getting 2 years ago as an offer, has slightly gone down now because there are a lot of talent out there chasing and looking for those opportunities. So salary most time is just more around the forces of demand and supply versus the cost of living. There are like good employers out there who always try as much as possible to go slightly above the cost of living and then the trending salary, the average salary in that location for those particular skill sets. I would say maybe until there's a mind shift change or more like a global regulatory changes around salary payments, I think it's still going to be the same, such that the salaries in different locations differ per those locations, even when the employees are doing the same thing. Unfortunately, this is out of our hands. It's just more like a capitalist taking advantage of what's the economics tend to push out there and what is available in terms of the metrics.
Yeah, very well said. It's really, there's nothing, it's simply that it's looking for cheap labor and perpetuating inequality that they would say on their website that they are not doing. And it's the big companies that do it. There are so many small companies that do location agnostic pay, buffer, all of them. They will pay you whatever. It's the big ones.
Sadiq, I don't know. I have a feeling you have a different perspective.
Yeah, so I think it's both. I hear her as well. It's both perspectives, to be honest. And sometimes it also depends on industry, company, right? Are two things that matter, right? Like you said, some companies is capitalists that really taking advantage of a place that is lower cost of living. And you also need to look at it from a business perspective, whereby some businesses are, for example, generating local currency revenue. A company in Nigeria is generating local currency revenue. If the company, for example, opens in US, right, the value of a dollar, if their revenue in dollar in US, is different from another value of one sale in Nigeria, right? So they will most likely, minus even the cost of living, right, they'll most likely pay somebody in the US. It's still the same company more than the person in Nigeria, right? So, and you don't also expect a company that is really typically Nigerian based to go all out, even if they hire somebody that is in UK, right? They won't go crazily all out on salary because their revenue is in Nigeria and FX goes crazy, right? If FX goes to 2,000, even if they still sell 100,000 sales, that FX the revenue they report to their investors, they collected money in USD. The money they invested is still 100,000. Investors is not thinking of Naira, right? Their revenue last month is different from their revenue this month. So they also have to put their cost base in that same revenue base that they're earning, right? So that's why, so I hear you. So it's, as I would say, it's more based on context of company and industry, right? So it's definitely unfair in some companies where we're both doing the same thing, we're both generating the same type of revenue, right? And you're paying me lower than another person in another country, right? So there's capitalism there, and that's just the way the world works. The world is not fair, to be honest.
It
right?
isn't. Thanks, Sadiq. But yeah, I should have specified. Not, I'm referring to those global companies, not someone who is earning, their revenue in Naira, and then that doesn't make sense. But I hear you.
Yeah. Thank you guys for sharing. I think all I'll just say to wrap this up and then we can call it a day is there are companies that abuse this. Yeah. But from a labor market and economic perspective, I understand it. Right. So I'll give you one small example. If you're hiring for a recruiter or I don't know, an operations person in Manila and you're hiring for someone in New York, right? There's the cost of living element, right? And then there's also the element of like breaking the labor market. Like if you pay somebody the same money you pay in America to someone living in a low income earning country, you have shattered that market, making it hard for people to actually hire in that market. And then that becomes a problem in the labor market. It's a real thing that I've seen play out. I've been part of people that have broken salary bands and done things and like we regret it. Because then even for that person, they probably can't get a next job because they're no longer realistic in their expectations because one company has come and broken the market. Right. So there's some market elements that we can talk about in the next one, hopefully, that are really strong. I'll try to make sure that I tailor the next one to talk about this, but there's so much to unpack here. So that's why I saw Sadiq's face and I'm like, he is in line with how I was raised because I'm like, it can be unfair for companies who actually want to shortchange you and pay you peanuts. But if they pay you something realistic where they put a percentile above whatever they're paying the next, like you get what I mean? They will make it make fair, but you have to consider the market, what is happening in the market of that particular country or location. You cannot not consider it. And there are companies that don't consider it. And the Nigerians are cashing out. If you're working remotely, you cash out and save your money. But even you know that 100 grand in dollars in Nigeria, come on, you know what you can do with that money. But if you get 50K in that same Nigeria, you're still a baller. So that's where the market's power really comes into play. Again, we can talk about it the next one, but I wanted to just lay that perspective that it's not all unfair from in terms of like the capitalist theory. There's also realistic elements in play here that would shatter the market if we went that route today. So yeah. Thank you, every single person, for staying on. I know people have come, joined, left, that's fine, that happens. But thank you guys for staying to the very end. And thank you for being engaging with your questions as well. I did tell these guys that it would take an hour, 30 minutes, but the last one took almost 3 hours. So heads up, we might go over 2 hours and it's 2 hours, 13 minutes right now. So thank you guys so much. And I will send you a follow-up email with more information. I'm also going to be offering, especially for you guys who have registered, discounts for my coaching services, review services, and I will send them to you guys in an email if you're interested in having a one-on-one with me, just to deep dive into where you're at in terms of your journey. And I will send all of that to you via email. Thank you again, and I'll see you guys in the next TWTC. And thank you, Sadiq and Victor, for saying yes to me and bringing all your knowledge and insight. It's been a blessing listening to both of you.
Thank you, guys. All the best.
Thanks for all the beautiful questions.
All right, guys. Take care, everyone. Bye.
All right.
Bye.